high-tech equipment.
Hi, Ted. That's me. That's all I do.
For little,
Gadgets.
for little wooden blocks.
The wooden blocks, yes.
She's got it figured out.
Well, I guess we can get started. We'll probably have some stragglers, but they can come in the back door. Marsha, if you want to, you're ready to go. This is Marsha Lewis. I provided you guys with her bio via email, and we're excited to have her. She has over 30 years.
I started really young.
Yeah, when she was 10, she actually got into the nutrition field. And so she's going to talk not only about weight loss, but also healthy eating in general, because I know a lot of us have questions about that. And we're pretty informal, so you guys know the drill. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. And particularly since it's a smaller group, I'll do just like I do my students here. If you sit on the back row, that's who I pick on.
Everybody's on the back.
I know, and it's really funny because in the next week they all move to the front row. And so then I say, I only pick on the front row today. And then it's just hilarious. So it's a pleasure to be here, even though it's a small group. Hopefully there's some people out there in video land. And so we can be a little more informal since it's a smaller group. I have prepared some things. Rachel asked me to talk about fad diets. And so we're going to kind of come at good nutrition from that point of view. Okay? And I'll try not to trip over this cord. We'll see how graceful I do it. So, there's a lot of confusion. So you might recognize some of those. There are a lot of books out there. There's the Paleo, the Dukan, the 17-day, the Wheat Belly. There's just, tons and tons of fad diets or diet plans that are out there that you can purchase. You may have heard about some of these. I actually have my students do a project at the end of the semester using all the knowledge that they have acquired. And they actually, in groups, have to pick a fad diet, and they're welcome to go on the internet and find I encourage them to find the most outrageous thing they can possibly find. And then they have to do a report and explain, why this would be a fad, what are some of the pitfalls. And it's a lot of fun. And so some things I have actually never heard of. And so most of those I now have simply because my students have presented on them. So there's the 5-bite diet, somebody did last year, the baby food diet. The zone diet, we've probably heard of that one. The werewolf diet, y'all heard that one.
Which one?
Werewolf. That was a really fun one. One of my students did last semester. There's the blood type, you may have heard of that, the tapeworm. I always get a student to do that because it has the way gross factor. The cookie diet, the sleeping beauty diet, the lemonade diet, the banana diet, you get the picture. So there's all kinds of different approaches, so what do we do with all this information? Does weight loss really have to be, that complicated? So I have good news for you today. It doesn't. It's just not that complicated. It doesn't have to be that hard. So we're all going to keep calm and forget the bad habits, all right? So the reason we're going to do that is because diets don't work. Right? Fad or otherwise, they don't. You might lose weight, but does it stay off is always the question, right? So one of the things that we look at in the field of nutrition for weight loss in particular, success, is that it's measured at the 1-year mark. Not 6 months, not 3 months, not that I don't care how much you lose in that period of time, but what I really want to know is, did it last? So after a year, are you still achieving those goals? So one of the reasons why diets don't work is, y'all seen this, right? You start a diet, you restrict, you feel deprived, you start craving things, you give in, and then you feel guilty, and then you're back into the same cycle. And that's really because diets don't work, right? So I'll give you a little more of the physiology. So we are in a university setting, so let's get a little more technical about all of this. So the vicious diet cycle, so you diet, so you pick less calories, and you have something called the famine or the starvation response. So literally what's happening in your body is that you've lowered the calories to the point where your body thinks it's starving. So a couple of things happen. You start losing weight from lean muscle mass, over fat often when you're starving yourself. That's not a good thing. Our metabolic rate will lower, again, because your body thinks you're starving, and so it's going to save your life by lowering your metabolic rate. And so then when we do eat, we have a tendency to increase our fat storage rather than protein or other ways that we can store our calories, and that's not a good thing either. Then we fall off the diet, because eventually we do. Then there's the feast response. So you've now got a lower metabolic rate, but you're eating everything in sight that you couldn't eat, and you've had a loss of muscle, so you regain all the weight that you lost, usually plus some because of the decrease in metabolic rate, and then now you're extremely frustrated, and the cycle continues. So we have to actually figure out a way around that. That's obviously not a very helpful or adaptive mechanism or method. So here's some of the negative effects. We already talked about the weight cycle. And I'm sorry, I'm looking back up here. I can't see it on there. For some reason, it's showing like minuscule, and my bifocal won't focus. It's really tiny. It's not it's supposed to be showing big over here, but it's not. So apologize for having to look too bad. So we have slow metabolism. We talked about that. There are some fad diets where I've worked many years in a hospital, and we'd actually see people admitted to the ER, then sometimes actually to the floors with dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, due to cleanse, detox diets, or some other choice that they made. And that's not actually that uncommon. They often don't get admitted. Sometimes it's just ER, you get fluids, and out you go. But they continue to be extremely popular. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies are seen because, again, you're restricting things where you're supposed to be getting those nutrients, and you're not getting them anymore. Kidney stones with extremely high protein diets I've seen many times. In fact, I just was working with somebody probably 6 months ago who was actually very young and was insistent on eating 3 times the amount of protein that he needed, and he developed kidney stones, uric acid stones. That's a byproduct of overeating protein. And it really didn't matter what I said. He was pretty convinced that was the way to go. He, by the way, was not achieving the goals he had set for himself and was extremely frustrated, but he was very convinced that that wasn't the problem. Hair loss, brittle nails, skin issues, all of these can result from inappropriate diet intake. When you're actually trying to do something for your health, yet you are creating a situation where you're not actually being healthy. So, the last one and not least is these things often really expensive. Okay? That right there would do the end. So, how do we spot a fad diet? Well, anything that promises a quick fix probably is not true. One of my favorites is if it has a dire warning from a single product, a single ingredient, or, one thing. So we love cell diets. We want everything to be reduced to one, just tell me, one thing, So, it's high fructose corn syrup. That's what's causing obesity in America. It may have some, I'm not saying any of these things alone might not influence obesity or weight gain, but it's not ever a single. It's sugar, it's fat, it's protein, it's this. Y'all get the message, right? It's one thing, and if we just knew what that one thing, gluten's the latest. If we could just get rid of that one thing, everything would be great. So that's probably not the best method. Claims that are too good to be true. Now, we tell our children that, we tell ourselves that, but yet when it comes to weight management, often that is not even in our minds for some people. It's too good to be true, probably is. Simplistic conclusions drawn from a complex setting. Now, we are in a university setting. We have a lot of science folks here. We teach our students critical thinking skills. We teach them to analyze the data and draw the conclusions based on that. But sometimes we really don't want it to say what it said, we really want it to say something else, and so we draw a simplistic conclusion from what's really a complex study. Recommendations based on a single study, we often call that anecdotal data. It's not anything we can replicate. So, or the statements in some study are refuted by the actual experts in that field. So we create this situation where we have a lot of distrust, where we really don't trust the experts. We really trust, I won't say who that's on TV a lot. And as a DR for his name. So we trust people because they sound really smart, or they're saying things that we want to hear, or they're, yeah, that makes sense, that's the answer, I've been looking for it. So recommendations based on studies published that haven't been reviewed, in a scientific situation, we would never do that. We'd be laughed out of the arena if I were to present data at an academic conference that hadn't been peer reviewed. That wouldn't be acceptable. List of good and bad food. So one of the first things that I teach my students is that food is not good or bad. It's how we use food that's good or bad. So I never teach good and bad. If you want a list of good and bad food, you're not going to get a list because I wouldn't even know what to put on it. Here's the other problem. The minute I say something's bad, peanut butter's bad. You may not have eaten peanut butter since you were a kid, but you now want it with all your heart and soul, and you cannot stop thinking about it. I mean, you're thinking about it when you're driving home. Next thing you know, you are going to the grocery store and you're buying that peanut butter because I told you it was bad. This is how we're human beings, and this is how we're put together. So the minute you put something on a bad food, you cannot stop thinking about that. So that doesn't work either. Plus, there really isn't any such thing. I wouldn't know what to list. All right? So what we do with food, how we use food, inappropriately using food can be good or bad, but not the food intrinsically, in and of itself. Okay, recommendations made to sell a product. Now, this one seems really obvious. We would never do that, right? But you click on all these little things on Facebook, the sidebars, and I only do it every once in a while when I'm in a super, super good mood because usually, by the time you get through, and then, you got to go to the next page, and get to I'm so put out and frustrated and angry that, I've got to go run or something because that's the only way I can get all that energy out. Because they hook you, they know how to do that. And it's subtle and it's slow. And by the end, you're ready you're writing a check. You've already gotten your checkbook halfway through it, you're ready to go. And they use psychology in an inappropriate way because we're trying to figure this out because it's hard. So if they're trying to sell something, that should be right there, give you pause, okay? And by the way, I say all those people selling stuff, they've made bajillions of dollars. It's a multi-million-dollar industry. They're all in Tahiti on the beach right now with a drink with an umbrella in it, okay? And y'all are sitting right still struggling. So we have something called freedom of speech. So we're allowed to do, I'm for it, this is a good thing. First Amendment is good, but they can put anything they want to in a book. All right, something that eliminates one of the 5 food groups. We need all of them. All food was put on this planet for our good. So I can get theological about that if I want to, but it's all good. So dairy, protein, grains, vegetables, fruit, we need all of them. So any plan that would eliminate an entire food group, all of these are bad. Probably should give you pause. And then of course, if it's really, really, really low in calories, starvation is never a good method. The only possible times that I would say that a very low calorie diet might be okay or beneficial. Weight Watchers, which is an excellent program, there's several out there that are actually really, really good programs, have these quick starts where for the first week or two they'll get you on a fairly low calorie diet, but then they very quickly move you past that. So the window of opportunity for low calorie is a week to 10 days. Beyond that, you start really messing with your metabolism. And that's the last thing you need. So, got a little diet guide ready to, and I've given you a copy of this, and it's crunched up, sorry. But I can send it to you by email if you would like. Okay, it goes through these steps. So you check off. I have my students do this. They have to actually write and explain why they answered yes or no to each of these statements as part of their project. So is the diet realistic? And can I follow this for the rest of my life? Really? Can I really do this? Is this something that would fit my lifestyle? Does it include all the food groups? Does it not allow for more than 30% of calories of fat? We know that more than that is going to cause heart disease. So why would we embrace a plan that's going to maybe let us lose weight but clog our arteries? That doesn't make any sense. So that's one of the sort of a yes or no. Does it meet all the vitamin and mineral requirements without the need for supplements? So many of these fad diets will sell you whatever and about $1,000 of supplements to go along with it. So I have to tell you all a story about that. So I worked at the VA clinic here in Macon for a while and loved working with the veterans. Some of them would come see me just because they had nothing else better to do, and they enjoyed coming to see. They never did anything I said, but they loved coming to see me. So, they'd come, and we'd sit there and chat. And this one particular gentleman, he had diabetes, and he actually didn't need to listen to what I was saying, and it was just too hard, and there was a lot of reasons why he just couldn't fill in the blank. So one day, he came into my office, he had an appointment, he was so excited. I said, Mr. So-and-so, it's so great to see you. Marsha, I am so excited. Let me tell you what happened. I went on a trip to Columbus, and I went to see a nutritionist. So I paused for a minute, and I went, really? Isn't that great? And so he said, and I said, well, what did they tell you? Or, how much did it cost? He says, oh, it was only $50. It's very inexpensive. I said, great. Well, what did they tell you? And he proceeded to tell me some of the things that this person had told him, which were very similar to what I had said, but, I just kind of listened, and he was all excited, so, we were going to go with it. And then he said, and he found out that I have all these deficiencies. And he pulled out a bag. It was a grocery bag that big. And he lined up, I said, how much did that cost you? And he said it was almost $900.
Oh.
And at that point, I just didn't know what to say, quite frankly. I wasn't going to tell him what I really thought. He just invested that much money in something. And so we went on to talk about, his blood sugars and the things that we would normally talk about. And I said, you do all of this, and I really hope that you're successful and that it helps you. You come back to see me next appointment, and we'll talk about it some more. So that's the sort of thing that always makes me so sad when I hear it, because it's interesting. Of course, he wasn't putting me in that category, but because of the way it was, I guess, marketed to him. He was afraid of that. And he was a CPA. He wasn't unintelligent. He wasn't uneducated. Anyway, if it doesn't meet all your vitamin, and they're going to sell you the supplements to go along with it. By the way, we just happen to have the very ones you need. That should give you some pause. It suggests no more than 1 to 2 times a week. Forbidden foods are kept at a minimum. It's that whole foods are good or bad. The minute you forbid something, you won't do that with all your heart. Emphasizes portion control, establishes good eating habits for permanent loss. You don't have to buy a special product or a book. And it was designed by incredible nutrition professionals. So I'm going to leave that one alone because that goes into a whole other conversation about who a credible professional would be. But you really need to look at the person's background and training and credentials. We have a lot of people who are just, they just look good, and they sell a lot of books. And that doesn't always equate with healthy or appropriate way to do things. So, if you answer no to any, one or more of any of these boxes, you might want to consider a different weight loss approach. All right, so what's the secret? Like they have a secret. Who are they anyway? And it's probably the same they that were telling my son stuff in high school. Well, they do this and they do that. I'm so sorry, I'm your mom. We really do distrust whoever they are. They happen to be me. Okay? They happen to be Rachel. So people that are trained in wellness and in health. We really don't have a secret. Okay, so what is the secret? Are you ready? I'm going to give it to you. Ready? That's the title of my book. Except that's as far as I got because no one wants to buy it. No one wants to publish it. There's no point in even writing it because nobody is going to buy that book. But really, that's what it boils down to. And sadly for me, the nutritionist, the exercise more is actually more important than the eating part. They're both really important. But you can eat the perfect meal plan without exercise. You are not going to be successful. It just has to go hand in hand. So, could it be that easy? So why is it so hard? Change is hard, that's why. We don't like it. Our bodies really don't like to change. They get really stuck at a certain weight, and they don't like to let go of it. And the older we are, the harder it is. Some of y'all know. And my 30 years, I started when I was 10, you understand. All right, but that's why diets don't work. It's exactly all of those reasons. So we don't want to start a diet as an expiration date. The word diet itself usually means temporary. We don't want to do that. We want to focus on a lifestyle that's going to last you forever. So it's got to be something you can always do. So here's some keys to weight loss success. Okay, y'all are looking for the secret I'm about to tell you. You ready? Planning. We hate that, but that's really one of the keys. We have to choose foods that are both healthy, that fit into our lifestyle, and that we like. If you hate spinach, don't eat spinach. Find something else. I mean, there are plenty of foods that you could love, even if you don't like certain ones. That's okay. We don't all like the same things. If cantaloupe, blue cheese, and liver were the last 3 foods on planet Earth, I would have to starve to death. I can't even smell cantaloupe. I can't even look at it without having a visceral response. It's a very long story. You don't want to know. But we all have foods that we really, really, truly dislike. We shouldn't have to eat those. There are plenty of other foods out there that we can eat. Caloric balance is important. So just like I discussed, eating too many calories as well as eating too few, both are problematic. We have to get the right balance. Also remembering that once they go in, it's not magic in there, okay? They have to be burned or they get stored. Those are the only 2 options. So you either burn them or you store them. Breakfast is essential. So I'll go as far to say that if you don't eat breakfast, it is very difficult to be successful with weight loss. It is one of the few things that we've studied a lot related to how our bodies work and how we put down fat. And of course, exercise is got to go along with everything else. So what are some of the barriers to success? Skipping meals, okay, doesn't help you lose weight. Usually leads to increased body fat and can lead to muscle breakdown. And so let me explain how that works. Our brains can only use glucose for energy. When we break down fat, we break it into a substance called ketones that we can use for energy. Many cells in our body can use ketones. And our brain can, under extraordinarily duress, like starving literally. But they don't like to use it. So their preferential fuel is glucose. So if you don't provide your body with some energy, okay, in the form of carbohydrate, you are then going to break down. We have an incredibly complex machine that is really wondrously made and has the ability to, sort of the Timex watch, you take a licking and keep on ticking, because we have all these backup systems. And one of the backup systems to not eating is that we can actually break down muscle protein in the form of our muscle for fuel. So your body says, okay, if you're not going to eat fine, I'm going to take your muscle that you just spent 2 hours upstairs working to build. I'm going to shut it to the liver, and in the liver I'm going to turn it into glucose and put it in the bloodstream so your brain can have some fuel, because your brain's got to have fuel. It's the number one. Everything cannot shut down, the brain can't. It's got to continue. It's the last thing to shut down. So food is our fuel. We have to have it. And if we don't eat, it just increases these metabolic disturbances that can occur. All right, so consequences, oops, I skipped one. Go back. So if we skip breakfast, your body thinks it's on a desert island. It gets very confused because in theory you slept all night. Now, when I talk to college students, they all laugh. You know, and I get this a lot. Ms. Lewis, what can I just got no energy whatsoever. What can I do? Did you eat breakfast? Nope. Did you eat lunch? Nope. How much sleep did you get yesterday? 2 hours. But they want me to give them a pill. You know, just give me a pill. So, you know, we have to have a discussion about this whole picture. But when you skip breakfast, this happens. Your body thinks it's on a desert island because, in theory, you slept all night, so you haven't been eating, right? And so you wake up, and the minute you start moving, your body's got to have fuel for that, right? What's going to fuel it? You're moving. Where's it getting its energy from? You know? And so there's a lot of different things that go on, and after about an hour of this, it's a problem. So it thinks it's on a desert island, that there's not going to be any food, and there are some consequences to this. Number one, we know that it lowers test scores in children. But, you know, we know that. That's old data. That's why we have school breakfast programs. That's not even discussed anywhere. Everybody knows the answer to that. But somehow we forget that that continues on into adulthood. It's not just kids. You know, it's adults too. So that translates into poor work performance. You're not as alert as you would be. So you're sleepy, particularly if you have a donut or a Pop-Tart or a Frappuccino from Starbucks and call that breakfast. Which, by the way, no, this one. That's how much sugar would be in it. Just saying. And those are going to actually cause you to, kind of have this mid-morning slump where you're really, really sleepy. For my athletes, I talk to them a lot. There's a direct relationship with sports performance. And you have low energy all day. Because you started out in a deficit. There's an increased likelihood of obesity because you lay down fat inappropriately, because what happens is when you do finally eat at noon, your body says, oh my gosh, the ship must have come in. Let me just store everything as fat, because who knows when another ship is coming. So your body gets to where it just doesn't trust you very much because you don't feed it enough. And so it thinks it's got to save your life. Hunger. So here's breakfast criteria. Okay, y'all ready? Consume within 1 hour of waking up. After that, it is no longer breakfast. It may be breakfast food, but your body, it's called break the fast, right? That's what the word breakfast means. Well, you already done did that, okay, to use full grammar. You already passed that stage. After about an hour, you've been up, you've had a shower, you've gotten ready, you've gone to work. Your body's already going, okay, where's the food? I've been fasting now for 10 hours. There's no food. I'm on a desert island. This is just biochemistry. It's what it's going to do. So, here's what breakfast should contain. It should contain some kind of food that's reasonably high in fiber. We don't have to get ridiculous. 3 to 5 grams is plenty. Okay, that would be range, y'all. Right? Could be fruit. Hard to get that much fiber in the fruit, but, could be those things. High in protein. By high, I mean 7 to 14 grams. It doesn't have to be higher than that at breakfast time. So we're not talking about this, cooked meal that you have to do. I eat most of my breakfast in the car because when I'm not teaching at Mercer, I'm traveling all over South Georgia, teaching patients how to inject diabetes medications. Okay, I worked for 2 pharmaceutical companies. And so I'm in the car a lot. And so I have a lot of different things that I grab and go. And we can talk about some of those things if you want to. But the important thing is that you provide some kind of energy. Breakfast is cultural. What we eat in the South is not what they eat in the North. It's certainly not what they eat in India. So my son is a student here at Mercer, and he went on a Mercer mission to India. And he's traveled a lot, and he likes a lot of different foods. And I encouraged him to take some foods that he might recognize. With him, no, Mom, I'm fine. I've traveled the world. I'm good. So the first week, curry for breakfast, it was delicious. We got a phone call, and it was just great. Curry for lunch, it was fabulous. Curry curry for dinner was really, really good. By the middle of week 2, curry for breakfast, lunch, and dinner wasn't so great after all. And all they wanted was some chicken nuggets and a Coke, and he doesn't even eat chicken nuggets and a Coke. So it's very, very, very cultural what you can choose to eat and be creative. I had a patient tell me once, I eat lima beans for breakfast. That's actually a really good choice. High fiber, high protein. I mean, whatever floats your boat. So think outside the box. It does not have to be grits and eggs and sausage and biscuits. It probably shouldn't be. Not a bit of fiber in any of that. Not one drop. Not a lick. So you're in trouble already. Okay? See, I was going to ruin your day somewhere, right? Okay. Lunch. Who's got the time for that? We're busy, we're working. At least y'all came here. This is great. Often people feel they don't have time for lunch, so they snack throughout the day. That increases their total calorie intake. And then there's the snack drawer. So we're hungry by the end of the day, so the first thing you do on the way home is you stop wherever you can, because you don't really care anymore at that point, and you buy whatever you can, and by the time you got home, you've already consumed at least 1,000 calories. You haven't even started on dinner. So some of you are nodding, that sounds vaguely familiar. We've all done it. Or they just drink their calories all day. So soda, sweet tea, juice. This actually was the strawberry banana smoothie at Einstein's. This is the mocha coffee at Einstein's. This is the recommended daily intake of added sugar. So right there, you can drink your calories or you can eat them, but you very rarely can do both. Right? Because they can be really, really high caloric if you're not paying attention. So it all adds up eventually. Let's go back to the snack drawer.
No, there's not.
Oh, come on, it's my favorite drawer. Everybody's got one. Everybody knows who has the drawer in every single office. And there's all kinds of interesting things in the drawer. Okay? Every time I get a new job, I start figuring out who's got the drawer. They might have something I want. You never know. Often the foods are high calorie, high in sugar, high in fat, there's snacks, just a little something, to get me by, get me through the day. So it's just all ones are good for you, right? Okay, so let's take a look. Pack of almonds, good for your heart, healthy fat, right? It's got a little fiber in it, it's got some protein. What could be wrong? That's not very much. It says 190 calories, and you're thinking, that's not bad. The only problem is you didn't read the whole entire label. There's 3 servings in this. So if you eat this 190 times 3, anybody get it now? It's close to 600 calories. Right, let's look at the peanuts. Because I love me some honey roasted peanuts. This one has 960 calories in this container. How quickly could you eat that? Like you don't even know you ate it. I mean, you're typing away, doing whatever you do, going from here to there, and grabbing some. By the end of the afternoon, that's 960 calories. I don't know why I can't lose weight. All I have is peanuts on it. And I ate a strawberry banana smoothie, and it was, in that fruit. So, but the issue is that we're not looking at the whole picture. That's back to that looking at one ingredient as being the evil thing. Only looking at this or only looking at that, not looking at the whole package. So random eating leads to random and often very frustrating results because you're just grabbing here and there, and it just almost never works out the way you hope. So what do you do? That's really the best way to eat. That's our tax dollars at work. Use it, you pay for it. It's an excellent, excellent website. My college students have to do all kinds of projects using that website. There's a whole section just for college students. That is excellent. Things to keep in your mini fridge. That would work too if you have a mini fridge in your office. Okay, go to the college section, go to tips for mini fridges, and it's so interesting the things that are on there, and my students will frequently say, well, I never thought about buying that. Well, that sounds good. So it's just sometimes you just need a little, just an idea of something other than that these are intrinsically bad, y'all understand, right? By themselves, they're just peanuts, and they never hurt anybody. And if you share them with everyone in the office, then all of you will only have about 100 calories. So there you go. And you'll be very popular. All right, so tips of success, you have to practice. You cannot skip meals. You must read your food labels. Fiber is really the key. So I tell my students, if you're not sure about an answer on any one of my tests, if you answer fiber, it might be right. My husband also teaches here in the religion department. And so I said, if you are not sure about an answer on one of his New Testament tests, if you just put Jesus, it's probably right. So Jesus in his class, fiber in mine, and you're in pretty good shape. But it's really that important. So read the labels for that and nothing else. In fact, the rule at my house is if it doesn't have 3 grams of fiber or more, it doesn't even get into the grocery cart. There's lots of reasons for that. That's another lecture. Decrease excess fat and added sugar. That's what this is. The recommendation now, new in 2015, 10% of your total calories is added. I'm not talking about sugar that's in the things that came out of the ground that way, but that we actually put into our food. It's not very much. Easy to get. A glass of sweet tea at Chick-fil-A. I did that for class the other day, and it was, for a large sweet tea, I think it was just about the same as that. I mean, it's a fair amount of sugar. Now I'm going really mad and mess with sweet tea in Georgia. I'm a big so be aware of what you eat. Don't just randomly know what you're putting in your body. If you know what you're putting in, you can make a good choice. And that doesn't mean you don't choose to eat a piece of cake every once in a while. Desserts and fun foods should be guilt-free. If you know what you're eating and you understand, you've made a choice, I'm going to eat this today and I'm going to enjoy every bite. You make a smaller choice, you take longer to eat it. There are a lot of ways to enjoy the foods that we love without having to have the disadvantage of the excess weight to go along with it. All right, so study right. And it can be done. So I'm going to challenge you to go out there and do it. What questions? Y'all were very quiet. I'm not used to them. Just a lot more interaction. At least a lot
Love to
more.
know what you take when you're on the road, your snacks.
Yes.
I want to know.
Okay, so one of my favorite things, I drink a lot of coffee, and I drink a lot of milk in my coffee because I grew up in Brazil. And so I have about this much milk and really, really, really strong coffee. So that goes in the car, first and foremost. I will often have Carnation Breakfast Essentials because it's got vitamins and protein and, I said don't drink your calories. There are exceptions to that when you're very consciously doing that. And sometimes this is easier because I can grab it. If I'm running really late, I am not a morning person at all. One of my son's roommates is an ROTC, and he asked me at the beginning of the semester, Miss Marsha, would you please come talk to our ROTC group at 5:30 of the a.m.? Not my favorite thing, but for him, I'm going to do it. So I'll probably be doing one of these. I like kashi bars. There's several of the breakfast bars, and you got to be real careful with breakfast bars because some of them are pretty high in sugar, added sugar, okay, and they don't have any fiber in them whatsoever or any protein. So I've actually in class showed a profile of a fiber bar, or not a fiber bar, a breakfast bar, and the Snickers bar. I just put the nutrition label, and they were almost identical. Wow! It's just one was packaged as a candy, and the other was packaged with healthy-looking grains on the front and smiling people. So it's all about understanding what the label is telling you and not just assuming because it's on that breakfast section that it's going to be a helpful food for you. But there are several that are, and those are the ones that I purchased because, again, it's a lot of grab and go. I love Quaker Oats oatmeal squares. They're high in fiber. And I eat them without milk, and I just put them in my car because I can grab them. Can't eat a flake in your car. You try. So when I was working at the VA, it just stayed in my car. It never even left the car, because then I could just eat a certain amount on my way to work, and I would have yogurt. And the reason I do this on the way to work is because I allow exactly 45 minutes from the time I get up till I need to leave the house. I'm not a morning person. And so I'm still within my hour. Okay, but I'm having to eat it on the way to work. So those are some things, but it could be all kinds of, I've done I've done a cheese sandwich on, really high fiber bread. I've done all kinds of different things. One thing we did in high school was we would get high fiber waffles and put peanut butter in between two of them. We just toast them, so not jelly, and just do a peanut butter waffle sandwich. That was a good breakfast to go for high school kids. So you just have to get creative and think differently than what you're used to thinking. And the clock is ticking.
We had a question from somebody who's not here, but she asked me in advance. She is a very picky eater, and she doesn't like to try new things, and she really doesn't like to try new vegetables.
Right.
So she has a real trouble getting in at least 2 or 3 servings a day. So what would you suggest for somebody? Should they just eat the same things in terms of vegetables, or do you have a strategy for how you can try to introduce new things into a diet if you're really not someone who's adventurous?
Yeah, so that's a complicated situation. And again, when I'm working with somebody on a one-on-one level, there's a lot more stuff I need to know. Number one, is there any kind of willingness to make a change at all? If there's no willingness, if we dug in, then we're just going to do the same things over and over again. If you only have a list of 10 foods you're going to eat, I'm going to work with that. But once you get tired of that, we're going to start trying to branch out. Oftentimes with vegetables, and Cheese My Plate actually has some excellent tips and things on how to make vegetables palatable. Oftentimes people don't like vegetables because they were given canned vegetables as a child with nothing in it, or salt, and that's it. And those aren't very palatable. And so you have to get past that. The best way to introduce vegetables who truly don't like them is to eat them raw. They don't have a strong flavor. And so that's one way. And you can eat almost all vegetables you can actually raw, including sweet potatoes. Have you ever tried a raw sweet potato? They're actually, no, white potatoes aren't as good, but a raw sweet potato is actually really good. So you can, and it has a completely different, it's crunchy, so you can slice it really thin and make it feel like a chip, but you haven't done anything to it. So that's the best way because the flavor is not as strong. So that's the way how we go. If they really will not eat a vegetable but will eat some fruits, we can get a lot of the same nutrients, obviously, from fruits. But fruits are higher calorie than vegetables, so it's not an even exchange, and so we would just have to work with them. But oftentimes it's just preparation. They just never had any prepared in a way that was, or they're just mushy and it's a texture thing, so then we have to get around that. Picky eaters, I used to teach, and haven't done this in a long time, but I used to, when we lived in North Carolina, did a class every month to new moms, and then to the babies, and then we do it later when they got a little older, and then we do them when they were 2. Because that's really always a challenge, to feed a 2-year-old. And we had a lot of fun with that, and there was actually a book that I use that's considered the standard. But one of the things in that book, I didn't come up with this thing, but it's actually recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics for teaching nutrition and behavioral eating. It's more about behavior when they're 2 than the nutrition part. It's all behavior too. And one of the things that they say, though, is that picky eaters are created, they're not born that way. And so then we got to get around what are all those other issues. I mean, it gets real complicated. What's really going on. So, but eventually we can lead people from eating almost nothing to stuff. Got to have the right motivation. Other questions?
Do you snack, or are you strictly meals?
I think that varies by the individual, and it varies by what you do. If you're at a desk job all day, you probably should not be snacking because your calorie needs are much lower. If you're eating every 4 to 5 hours, you don't really need to snack. And so what's interesting about snacks, that's a very uniquely American phenomenon, by the way. And if you think back before about the 1970s, we didn't snack. Thinking some of y'all who can remember your childhood, you might have gotten a snack after school and it wasn't chips. And that wasn't a thing. This is a very marketed, it's a food industry concerted effort to market. And so snack food industry is just, so when I go into a classroom setting, usually the first question people ask me is not what can I eat to help my diabetes, but what can I snack on? And I find that so interesting. So my answer always is, bless your heart, did you not get enough lunch? I'm so sorry. So we're going to work backwards and make sure you have enough lunch so that snacking is, so why do you need a snack is my question. Did you not get enough lunch? Was it not high enough in fiber? Was it all fat and simple carbs? And so now you're hungry in an hour. Was it just lettuce? That's not helpful, because you're going to be hungry in 30 minutes. No fiber in lettuce. But I ate a salad, so not exactly what I want. So, so I'm going to go back and look at them. Before I answer your question, it's very frustrating. They want me just to give them a list. People want lists. They don't follow lists, but they want one. They want a list, so they can put it in a drawer and say, well, I couldn't do that. Not my fault. So, here's when I think a snack is reasonable. Your lunch hour is at 11, let's say. Okay, that's what time you're supposed to go. And you don't get home till 6, you're not eating dinner till 7. That's, no matter how good a lunch you have, that's a really long time for humans to go without eating. And so then I would plan a snack. That's the key. Because if you don't plan a snack, you don't really care at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to go foraging through the drawer, and, all bets are off. You're going to find a machine, and you're going to eat something you know is not going to achieve your goals, but, so if you're in that situation, then I encourage people to plan a snack. Bring something with you. The typical criteria for a snack is not a meal, by the way. So it's got to be under 200 calories. If it's over that, we're into a meal. It's not a meal, it's a snack. Now, your body doesn't know the difference between a snack food and broccoli, okay? Once it gets digested and absorbed, it's all the same thing. So what we call a meal and what we call a snack is a cultural construct, okay? It's not anything that is necessarily, bound by nutrition. It's all about how much you actually put in at that time. So bring a snack with you if you need one. If you're really struggling with hunger and you've done everything right, then I would still plan a snack, but make it smaller and make it something you can eat. One of my favorite snacks that I tell college students is to do, late night, because that's just boredom and anxiety. When you're studying, so popcorn, okay, high fiber popcorn, believe it or not, there's such a thing. Okay, there's a difference. It should be low fat. The best popcorn you can buy are the 100-calorie pop bags, because if you buy the big ones that have 400 calories, I'm only going to eat half of them. We're all human. We don't. Next thing we know, where did that go? Who ate the popcorn? Because it wasn't me. So to buy something like that. And the other thing that I really like a lot are pistachios in the shell.
So you have to work for it.
They're the lowest fat nut. Okay? So you can eat 50 pistachios and it's only 160 calories. So they're high in fiber, they're low in fat, they're high in protein, and it takes you forever to eat 50 of them. Yeah, you get to forget it. I'm just not going to eat it. It's way too much work. That would be the point. That's exactly why I want you to do that. If it's too easy, it's too easy. Or buy individual snack, because they're more expensive, but sometimes some of us have less self-control. If that's, we all don't. When we want to eat, we just want to eat. That's biological, okay? So that's not about your character. It's not a character flaw. It's biology. So those little snack packets, they'll help us stay true to the goals, even because they're only 100 calories. No matter what it is, you're not going to get more than 100 calories of it. So even if it's Oreos, it's still only 100 calories because you're not going to buy another pack or eat another because they're expensive. And if you're like me, that right there will make me, use less of them. Grew up overseas. My parents were missionaries. I still got the missionary barrel mentality. So there's a number of things you can do, but I encourage you to plan one if that's something you find yourself looking for. I'll tell you one thing I used to do a lot when I was in a more office job is I would do fruit teas, like cherry water, some kind of real strong fruit tea that was herbal tea. and with no sugar, because often if it's a real strong fruit flavored tea, you don't need sugar because they just kind of have a sort of a sweet taste. And it's hot, it's got some flavor, it's got 0 calories, and that would be enough. And I guess hot might not be good for some people. It's always good for me because I'm always freezing. And so, you know, it would be something to do. I'd get up out of my chair, I'd go to the microwave, I'd heat up my water, I'd put my tea bag in, I'd come, I'd get my stuff organized so the tea wouldn't be, you know, I mean, it's something to do. And then I'd have something to sip on that had a strong, good flavor, but it wasn't calories. So I used to do that a good bit. Worked in a doctor's office where we had breakfast, lunch provided by the pharmaceutical industry every single day. And it wasn't what I would have chosen. But it was over there and it was free. I gained 15 pounds the first year I was there. It's gone, but you know, it was, I'd never gained weight in my life until it, but it was just, it was there. And I know better, but we're human, right? So I had to come up with some strategies. It was 2 doors down from me, that was the worst part. It wasn't even on the other side of the building, you know. So I had to come up with some strategies to deal with that because I was like, oh, no, let's get that one.
Okay, it's the holiday time coming up, and there are the parties,
Yeah.
there are the dinners. How do you handle that?
That's really always, I mean, that's a challenge. So I would never say this under normal circumstances, but you can save up calories. You need to eat through the day because if you're starving, you will eat, you know, ridiculous number of calories. But you can, I would eat less calories that day. I mean, I would be very intentional about eating less breakfast, less lunch, because you know you're going to, okay? But you also can choose amongst the things that are offered. You don't have to put 4 cups of ranch dressing on something. You could put a drizzle. So you can make some choices. And some of it just is deciding you're only going to eat. You know, you don't have to do a two-fisted eating. You can, you know, eat one, go talk a while, you know, eat another, go talk, you know, particularly if it's an hors d'oeuvre kind of thing. What we know about our appetites is, I'm not even watching the clock run this down, is that it takes 20 minutes to signal our brains that we're full, okay? So if you can eat those little smaller amounts over a 20-minute period of time, you may be full already and not feel like you have to eat more. There is no point in saying I'm not going to eat any of it, because that's not realistic. But there is a point in saying I'm not going to let those foods, which I love, I'm going to eat them, but I'm not going to let them ruin everything I've been working for the last 6 months. You know, so it's got to be a balance. It's just like a credit card. I love shoes, okay? I've been limited. So, you know, but they were on sale. I mean, how could you not? They're so cute. And so, you know, we have a credit card. I can just go swipe and buy them. But then what happens at the end of the month? I got a bill, right? So I can't, sure, I can just keep swiping. But we don't do that. So the same thing with our food. We have to have some level of cognitive desire to enjoy that, but it's really okay to enjoy it. Like, I've really got plenty of shoes right now that I need to buy anymore. So I can't even look at the sales, you know, because if I do, I'll go buy, you know, it'll be just too cute and, you know, 80% off. So you have to know yourself and how to pace all of that to some extent. But depriving yourself of it or not going are really not the right response. Because again, will you do that the rest of your life? And by the way, we don't count Christmas or Thanksgiving, do we? We live on the radar screen and just don't even worry about those 2 days. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much for your leadership. It's very good. I have a feeling I'll get some emailed questions, so perhaps I'll send you a.
Yeah, just send them off. Send them to me.
So you do individual one-on-one consultation?
I hesitate because it depends on my schedule and I have. I do actually work with eating disorders, both here and away from here. A lot of teenagers, and that varies a good bit. Just one-on-one counseling for weight management or other things, it just sort of depends on the schedule. Because I don't have an office or any, way to do that, but I have done that. So, there's that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. I had an interesting question from a friend of mine, not here at Mercer, but he was a diabetic. And he was telling me about this great new metabolic diet. And of course, I said, oh, okay. And so I guess the whole premise is eating things in particular order. And that raised some flags for me. And of course, it was one that you need to go pay to see one of their nutritionists. But it was something, again, like you said about your friend who's in the VA. It's like, all right, come and pay us and we'll individualize what order you need to eat your food in.
There's just not anything like that, and that's unfortunate, because that's too hard, you can't do that forever, and it's not, in diabetes, that's certainly not the point of that. So, if that is what I do most of the time is work with diabetes. I also teach in the diabetes program at Houston County, at the hospital there. So that is that I do. I do know diabetes, and that's unfortunate. But everybody's looking for something that's not. It's so interesting to me. Just buy fruits and vegetables and eat regular food. It can't possibly be that easy.
Well, we talk all the time about the fact that one, everybody wants the secret, which you mentioned, and it feels like people want it to. It's not going to work unless it's a punishment.
Right.
Like people just don't believe that you can actually eat a good number of calories and you can eat a variety of foods, and it doesn't. And it's like, well, I'm not hungry. It must not be working.
Yeah, or I'm not hungry, so I don't eat. And you've got to eat within your hunger is very misleading. It's not the right. It's not the right cue. The clock is a better cue. So because when you're in starvation mode, you don't feel hunger, which if you think about it, is a great adaptive mechanism. So true hungry children don't feel the hunger. That's good. But we do it to ourselves.
So you said every 4 to 5 hours, roughly?
Yeah, so breakfast, eat when you get up, somewhere in the middle of the day, and, if it's going to be a long period of time, you need something in between. So, my husband gets up at 5:30, whatever, but, so he's eating and cleaning the kitchen, everything before I even out of the bed. Half the time he's gone before me, which is not a bad thing. Are we off the computer?
Yes, we're off.
34 years and counting, That one's still on.
We love you all, but it's not live.
We'll edit that whole part out.
He does work here. But everybody's day is a little different. So, if he eats breakfast at 6:30, which he typically does after he's walked his 2.5 miles, which he does religiously, that's a good thing. Then he's going to want to eat lunch a little bit earlier. And that varies a lot by his class schedule. But he does take his lunch from home. So he doesn't, he's too cheap to go to the snack machine.
Which is a good thing.
The first thing we get up, when we get up in the morning, we need to eat.
Within the first hour.
That's the first hour.
Got to speed up.
So I get up at 5, but I usually don't eat until I get almost to work, so I don't have to.
So you need to eat something to get the metabolism. Then you can eat again.
I drink my coffee.
And so, that won't do it. So a lot of times people do that. I'll tell them, well, go ahead and eat something to convince your body that it's not on a desert island. And then when you get to work, you can do whatever it is you do. But don't exercise without eating first thing in the morning either. That's not good. You've got to have something to start for the same reasons.
You now know what it is.
ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, because it was going on, I mean, it was fine.
Because last time, I was, like, it happened like after 10 minutes or something, and it might be like I tapped the screen, I actually wasn't tapping the screen, so, sorry.
That's, no, I mean, no, it's fine, that makes sense, so that would be the issue. Because it goes to sleep. Thank you so much, that was really great. It's just, everybody wants the secret,
Yeah, they love the secret.
and that's why I'll never get rich in this field,
That's
because,
why my book was done.
exactly. What's the secret?
Well, my little sister sent me a link called SpudFit. Have you heard of SpudFit?
Oh yeah, you'll need this one for your
I was
students.
gonna say, is that another one for them?
Potato only for 3 days.
Love it.
Only potatoes. Nothing, no fat, no like, just no proteins.
Just potatoes.
Just straight potatoes. And like I was